Although some newer smart devices might support both the 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz Wi-Fi networks, most smart devices only support the 2.4 GHz network. This can cause an issue when setting up these devices if you have a mesh Wi-Fi system in your home network, because the mesh Wi-Fi system is only broadcasting one Wi-Fi network as opposed to a distinct 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz Wi-Fi networks. Rest assured, however, there is a way around this, and that's exactly what I'm going to be explaining to you today in today's episode from Network from Home. So let's dive right in. So let's talk about why smart devices have trouble connecting to mesh Wi-Fi systems in the first place. Well, when you're setting up these smart devices, what needs to happen is your phone usually passes the credentials of your Wi-Fi network to your smart device. In order for this to happen and for these two devices to communicate with each other, they need to be on the same Wi-Fi network with the same Wi-Fi band. For example, they both need to be on the 2.4 GHz band. The challenge here is with a mesh Wi-Fi system, it's only broadcasting one Wi-Fi network, and what it will do is it will automatically connect your devices to the Wi-Fi band that it thinks will give the device the best performance. In other words, with your mobile device like your phone, it might push it to the 5 GHz Wi-Fi network, and then your smart device, it might push this device to the 2.4 GHz network. This obviously causes issue with communication and setup because your smartphone and your smart device are on two different Wi-Fi frequencies and they can't talk to each other. The difference here is if you were using a standalone router as opposed to a mesh Wi-Fi system, you would have a distinct 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz Wi-Fi network, and you would be able to manually select for each device to connect to the 2.4 GHz network so they could talk to each other, and then your smartphone could pass the credentials of your Wi-Fi network to your smart device, and you can set up that smart device. Even when your smart device is set up, you could still have problems because your mesh Wi-Fi system could try to push your smart device to the 5 GHz Wi-Fi network. Your smart device isn't made to be used with the 5 GHz network, so when it tries to connect to the 5 GHz network, it fails, and then it's not smart enough to fail back to the 2.4 GHz network afterwards. This can lead to the device not working properly, and that's what a lot of people experience. So how do we get around this? As you'll see, what we can do is we can temporarily turn off the 5 GHz Wi-Fi network, set up our smart device on the 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi network, and then turn the 5 GHz Wi-Fi network back on after we've set up the smart device to only use the 2.4 GHz network. One word of note is I have a TP-Link BE25 mesh Wi-Fi system in my home network. If you have a different make and model of mesh Wi-Fi, go ahead and try to follow along with these steps. The setup should be very similar to my setup here. Another word of note here though is sadly, some mesh Wi-Fi systems like Amazon Eero, Google Nest Wi-Fi, for example, they don't offer the functionality that I'll be showing in this video. So if you have those mesh Wi-Fi systems, you might want to look at a different solution. With that said, it can't hurt to see if you can get your smart device set up on your home network by following along with these steps. Okay, I have my smart device here. The first thing we want to do is we want to access our mesh Wi-Fi system settings. With TP-Link, this is called the Deco app. Again, if you have a different make and model, just log into the app that you use to manage your mesh Wi-Fi system, log in and get to the home page, and we'll take it from there. Once you're logged into your mesh Wi-Fi system, we want to go to Wi-Fi settings. From here, you want to click this top option, which is 2.4 and 5 GHz Wi-Fi network. From here, we want to go to advanced. And here we see next to band, it says 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz Wi-Fi networks. What we want to do is we want to click into this and we want to turn off the 5 GHz band. So just select 5 GHz and select save. So now our mesh Wi-Fi system is only broadcasting the 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi network, so we can move forward with the setup of our smart device. I'll walk through the abbreviated steps of setting up my smart switch here, just so you can see what it looks like and how it connects to the Wi-Fi network. But if you already know how to set up your smart device, go ahead and do that now and then rejoin us once we access our mesh Wi-Fi system settings again. All right, I've connected my smart switch to a power source. I've performed a factory reset so we can walk through the steps as if we're setting it up for the first time. I'll walk through the steps quickly, but you'll get at a high level an understanding of what it should look like, and then we'll move forward. So this smart device is managed by the Casa app, so I'm going to log into that. From here, we want to add a new device. We're adding a new device, and now we just walk through the setup steps, and we'll buzz through until we get to the Wi-Fi connection setting. Smart plug this model. We'll hit next, it's powered on. Next, it's flashing green and orange. Now we connect to the Wi-Fi network with our phone that this device is broadcasting. We're able to do this now because both this phone and the smart device are guaranteed to be on the same Wi-Fi network because our mesh Wi-Fi system is only broadcasting the 2.4 gigahertz network. So let's go in and connect to the Wi-Fi network now. Okay, under Wi-Fi settings, we can see right here, here's the device, let's connect to it. Once we're connected, we go back to the app. We're connecting to the smart plug. Here we're going to reset the device as if we're setting it up for the first time. Now we select the Wi-Fi network we want this device to connect to. We want to use our guest Wi-Fi network, so that's what I'll use here. And basically what our phone is going to do is it's going to pass the credentials to this smart device. Now I'll pick a name of the device and move on. All right, now the smart switch is set up. The status light is green. It's connected to our mesh Wi-Fi home network. Now we need to go back into our mesh Wi-Fi home network settings. So I'm going back to the Deco app. Okay, in the Deco app, we don't want to go straight to turning our 5G Wi-Fi network back on. There's another change we'd like to do first. So first what you want to do is you want to access the clients connected to your mesh Wi-Fi system. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to click on the client list. Now I'm going to go and find the device that I just set up. So I'm going to scroll down, select bedroom switch. From here, we're going to select connection preference. And then here, as you can see, if we scroll down, we can go to preferred Wi-Fi band. We want to select 2.4 gigahertz. For many devices, it will say recommended. For this one, we want to make sure it says 2.4 gigahertz, so it only uses that band, and that way your smart device will always work. It won't try to connect to the 5 gigahertz band and fail. You know you won't have any problems because the device is made for the 2.4 gigahertz network. Once that's locked in, we want to go back to the main settings for our mesh Wi-Fi system. We want to scroll up, go back to Wi-Fi settings. Now we select at the top, it says 2.4 gigahertz network, select that. Go to advanced again. Band, we want to go into band. And then we're selecting 5 gigahertz network to turn it back on. And then we select save. All right, so let's recap. At this point, we have our smart switch. It's connected to our mesh Wi-Fi system, and it's been configured to only use the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi network. In terms of our mesh Wi-Fi network, it's basically set up as it was before. It's broadcasting both the 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi networks, so it's operating just as we would expect it to. Hopefully your mesh Wi-Fi system allowed you to follow these steps so you can connect your smart device to your home network. I'd love to see in the comments section if you have a make and model that's different than the TP-Link BE25. I'd love to see what functionality your mesh Wi-Fi network has and if it allows you to make these configuration changes. As always, thanks for checking out this episode from Network from Home, and we'll catch you on the next one.